Chasta here for 107.7 The Bone, Baby Huey, along with Mr. Matt Sorum. How you doing today?
Well, getting ready to rock and roll in Gilroy, California. I've never been there. Isn't that weird?
Oh, you haven't? Oh,
no, I might have drove through there. I remember smelling something like garlic or something.
It is the world capital of garlic, so get ready for it. There's going to probably be garlic, everything you can imagine. It's great.
Well, the weirdest one is garlic ice cream. I was like, that's like, okay.
Have you tried it?
I told my kid, I have a little daughter, she's 3. I go, you want daddy to bring you back some garlic ice cream? She's like, no.
I would love to see her face, though, if she tried it.
Didn't even know what it is, but she said it sounded weird. So,
well, at 3, everything is no. Like, that's just what you get.
Pretty much. And then I'll go, no. And then she goes, yes. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting somewhere.
That's awesome. Well, Matt, we're so excited to talk to you again. We got to hang out with you a couple years ago at Aftershock when you were with Deadland Ritual, and it was such a great chat. But honestly, I'm so excited to have like a little more alone time with you in a place that isn't so loud and chaotic because ever since we talked to you, and I don't want to speak for Baby Huey, he can chime in on this, but every time I get the question now, who is the coolest rock star you've ever interviewed? My answer is Matt Sorum. And I will say, not only coolest, but most stylish. I mean, are you kidding me? He walks in the room and you're like, snap, look at him.
Well, that was the thing. Aftershock. Yeah, Matt, when we had the interview locked in with you guys, we were like super excited, talk to everyone in the band. And I remember we're standing in the media area, and there's a lot of people. It's very chaotic. People are doing interviews, other bands, everything. And we were like, yes, we got Deadland Ritual because like it's featuring guys that we play on the radio a lot. And so we were super excited, like just for the rock star aspect. And I remember we both saw you guys came walking, and it felt like the party of the Red Seas, like the true rock stars were coming through. And we were like, hell yeah, they're coming to us. So that was just an awesome feeling for us. And it was just such a fun interview with all of you guys. But yes, it was just this aura of like, the badass real rock stars are coming through.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. Well, you know, I felt that way about being in a band with Geezer. I mean, come on, you know, and he was just like, for me to, you know, it was a short-lived band, you know, it didn't last, but mainly because me and Geezer were like, I don't know if I can ride in a van. How about you? I was like,
and we did talk about that a little bit because I loved Deadland Ritual, and that was several years ago. I still have those songs on my running playlist, so I hear them all the time. And I was like, man, I gotta ask Matt what happened, because there was so much energy and great writing in that band.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, you know, when you're trying to start a new band, you know, it is a new band, and even Velvet Revolver, you know, we came out banging, but there was a couple of years setting that up, right? And we came out with Slither, and boom, the train was rolling. But you know, Deadland was a different situation, you know, with the way the music industry's gone and stuff, as far as signing rock and roll, and you know, how do you get the music out there and all that stuff. So when we finally started to go out and do some tours, you know, we're going on during the day, you know, the earlier, and I go to Geezer, when was the last time you went on stage during the day?
Right?
you go, I don't remember. Probably.
Geezer doesn't even see the sunlight anymore.
Yeah, and then me and Geezer were on a bus. We shared a bus in Europe, and you know, he asked me if we wanted to get our own bus, because there was like, you know, when you do a tour like that, you have a budget and you got to get like the crew, and you know, we weren't getting Black Sabbath money or, you know, or, you know, money or Guns N' Roses money. We were getting the money that a band that opens during the day gets, right? So you have a budget. So very expensive to tour Europe. So we're on, you know, we get a bus, me and Geezer get a bus. And even then I said, Geezer, when was the last time you were on a bus? He says, I don't remember. You know, and he didn't even really like the bus that much. And I got to say, it was like that kind of thing. When you've toured that many years, as far as Geezer and even myself, you know, you have to have sort of creature comforts to be able to survive a tour. at our, at our age. It's like when you're a kid, when you're 20, 25, you don't care. You're in a van. You're like, I remember my first tour. I was in a station wagon, and I drove the Ford Econoline van, and I was a kid in a candy store. I was like, what are we eating? Who cares? Get some top ramen. Whoa. And then you're like, oh, or you don't have a hotel tonight? We sleep in the bus? Really?
Yeah.
And I did that tour. I did that too with, like, for instance, Billy Gibbons. When I tour with Billy Gibbons, Billy doesn't like hotels, but we get the bus looking nice. We got bunks, we got all the accoutrements, and we'll roll up to the gig and we'll sleep right on the bus, right? So we do 6 nights a week, traveling 10 hours a night. We roll up. Billy always calls ahead and he goes, "You got the tomato soup ready?" He loves soup. And we roll in and there's food. He goes, "It's Tuesday, it's taco day." We'll get out of the bus in our pajamas, go into the venue, and there's tacos. We're like, yes. Like,
that's amazing.
So he's been doing it 50-something years, right?
Yeah.
I call him the Vagabond Man. It's in a song I wrote on his last album, Hardware.
Yeah.
And it's about being a gypsy and traveling. So I think Deadland was kind of that. It was a couple guys, 3 guys that have been in really big bands and traveled at the highest level and played the biggest shows. And then Frankie Perez, who, great singer, but it just, wasn't something that we could really push through, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Well, you got a couple of awesome songs out of the deal. So, I mean, and I'm sure really cool experiences sharing a van with Geezer Butler. Like, I don't know if that was on your life's bingo card, but that's pretty rad too.
I got a whole book on that.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
I mean, I go, Geezer, it's storytelling time,
Yeah, right.
And if you read his book, but I mean,
I haven't yet. I need to do that, actually. I do love a rock and roll book.
Yeah,
my absolute favorite. Baby Huey and I talk about the fact that one of the things we love about you most is that you are such a humble dude. And I think that seems personally and professionally, you're one of my favorite drummers, and I'm a drummer snob because I've been married to a drummer for 15 years. And my 7-year-old is a drummer as well.
Where do the drummers always get the hot chicks? It's like, my wife's so hot. I'm like, why do you want to go for me? She goes,
she is. Your wife is hot. And your wife and I are from the same part of the country. She's from Ada, if I remember right?
Yeah, that's right. Oklahoma.
That's where I was born.
What?
Yeah.
Ada, Oklahoma. Yeah. Oh my God. Now we got 3 famous people from Ada. You, Ace, and Blake Shelton.
And Blake Shelton. I grew up with Blake. He used to do keg stands at parties in college when we were all hanging out. So yeah, Blake's a nut job. I love him.
In a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Awesome.
Yeah, so tell her I said hi. We'll just basically say we're related at this point. But anyway, back to you. Back to the point of this is that you always play for the song, and I love that about you, because you're so locked in and you're a creative drummer, but you also play for the needs of the song. And I think that comes from your history as a drummer.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I think that's probably why I've been in so many bands. Like, there's a lot of young drummers that come up to me and ask me what I think, give them advice and stuff like that. And I always say, look, be a team player. You're there for the song. You're not there to serve yourself. You're in a band unit, which means you're collaborating, you're listening, you're trying to make it better than, just to, what you put into the music. And I always try to consider myself as a musical drummer. So just for instance, like Slither, when we start Slither, Slash and I would talk about really important intros, we built that emotion when that song kicks in. And I had that beat. It was kind of tribal. And right. So we didn't like talk about it analytically or anything, because we always kept it very rock and roll. But we would trade off on intros, like Slash would go, or I had right. Beginning, You Could Be Mine.
Oh yeah. I was gonna bring that one up too.
Well, Slash would go, you got that one. Okay, that's how we're starting. So I say to young drummers, I say, be impactful, make make really good points, but don't overplay. Don't step on the vocals. When the guitar player is playing, you're there to support that solo. The chorus, lift, be dynamic, powerful. The drummer's job is to kick the band in the ass. And if it's lagging and it's slow and it's the thing's falling asleep, we get no respect like Ronnie Dangerfield. I say, hey, I'm back here, but in general, I would say to any young drummer, be a team player, have an open mind, be willing. Watch Ringo on the Get Back documentary, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
So good. I know he's like your biggest influence.
Well, he is, and he's actually become a friend. And I talked to him about the movie, and I'm like, I love you even more because he was such a mediator between John and Paul and even George. He was this guy. He was like a peacekeeper. He was constantly keeping the vibe up. He was like the happy guy in the room. Yeah. And that's that too. It's like, what's your attitude? Don't walk in with an attitude. You're not the cat's meow. Even when you get famous, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that about you.
But so for you, it's all good.
Going crazy here.
I love it.
Matt, for you though, with that when did that develop? Was that always with you when you were starting out as a drummer? I saw an interview, you talked about how you were in a top 40 cover band playing five sets, 45 minutes.
Sorry, I'm going to grab the dog. Can we edit
Sure,
this?
yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. That's hilarious. The dog wants its moment in the sun. Yeah. Wait, I'm just noticing, are we in Matt Sorum's closet right now? I think we are.
A fashion show.
Yeah, I know, right? Fashion.
I'm so sorry about that. This is Bonzo.
That?
This is Bonzo.
What is it?
Bonzo.
Bonzo. Oh my God. That's awesome.
Great story. So I get the dog and we're throwing around names for the listeners out there. There's a French bulldog here right now. And I get the dog and my wife says Gonzo, like, that's more like Hunter S. Thompson or something. I'm like, he was kind of a stoner, but let's go Bonzo. So I see that Hart and Jason Bonham are playing at the arena out here in the desert, Acrisure. Yeah. And I go backstage and I see Jason, who I've known since I was in the Cult and Bonham opened when he had the Bonham record. And I go, Jason, I just got a French bulldog and I just want to ask if it's cool. I need to get your blessing. I'm going to name my Frenchie Bonzo. Right. And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. And I go, you never had a dog named Bonzo? He goes, no, my dad was Bonzo. What are you talking about? I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, you're not going to like name your dog after your dad. But,
after your dad.
So this is Bonzo. And then
Bonzo is precious.
I don't know if you saw the picture of me about a week ago in London with the Black Crowes. And
I was going to say, that looks awesome.
I met Jimmy Page before, but I haven't seen him in 20 years. And I go, somehow we got talking about dogs. And I'm like, Jimmy, I got a dog, Frenchie. His name's Bonzo. He's like, oh, that's fabulous. It was like, he was so into it. I go, man. I mean, there he is.
Funny. About those pictures, I love Bonzo. Yeah. He's so cute. About those pictures, Baby Huey brought up the funniest thought the other day because you noticed that Jimmy Page has on a lanyard, like a VIP backstage thing, and we were cracking up because Huey's like, "Is there anyone in the world that would see Jimmy Page and be like, nah, brah, you can't come through?" Like, I think if anyone can walk through,
I mean, yes, I mean, I feel like. He's Jimmy Page, but he's such a humble guy. And I feel like, we had great conversation. We were backstage and I don't know if you saw, I had Steven Tyler with me. We'd gone on a trip to Africa together, which was crazy.
That's gotta be crazy.
Like 10 days with Steven Tyler. Okay. I'm like, oh yeah, he's a cool dude, man. And I've known him a long time, but anyway, he's just a very humble guy. I don't think he wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. I mean, I don't do that, I wrote Kashmir, even though we did have a conversation about Kashmir, believe it or not.
Wow.
we got into a conversation about Morocco because I said, I remember talking to him about that and saying, I know that you were influenced by the music there. And we started getting into this really heavy talk about flutes and snake charmers. And then he says, yes. And, you know, when I wrote Kashmir, I'm like, oh, is he talking? I'm like, it's like one of those moments where you're like, are we having this conversation right now?
That has to be out of body, like an out of body moment.
Yeah. And so it was really cool. And then,
wow.
And then it kind of like shifted into dogs.
That's how you got to Bonzo?
But he's just a humble guy. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine yesterday, a guy named Dan Catullo, who's a big video director. And he's doing the new documentary for the Hollywood Vampires, which I'm going to be a part of.
Awesome.
So he was saying that Jimmy came to the Rage Against the Machine gig and he was by himself and he was out front at the box office and going, hey, I'm here. And well, he's like, what? Like, he ran out there and got him. And but Jimmy, I love that. Yeah. After you meet somebody like that, I always say, be careful when you meet your heroes, right? It's like you don't know what you're gonna get. But I mean, I met him almost 25 years ago. Couldn't have been cooler. Same the last time. Even cooler now. This time I saw him, he just seemed so relaxed and so calm. It's like, yeah, maybe internally you're like, I'm Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin.
Right. But he's not forward facing like that.
No.
That's great.
I feel like it's kind of where I'm at in my life. I'm just like, okay, I've done a lot of cool stuff. Whatever comes after this is all icing on the cake. And I got, you know, so I go and play concerts with my friends. And if Jimmy calls and he wants to put Led Zeppelin back together, I'd probably do that. But I didn't say anything. I was just like,
nudge him, be like, no, I'm down.
We did talk about Jason, and we talked about how the drummer instinct is so heart driven and almost hereditary. Because I'd say there's a million guys that think they can play Led Zeppelin, but it never sounds like Led Zeppelin perfectly. It's not, because that's like a human thing. And Jason is probably the closest I've heard to his father, and I believe that's based on his heart and his his lineage and where he's the son of John Bonham. So it's like he was born
drumming is that to me. And I think that's why I've always been attracted to drummers, both musically and physically, as it turns out. But because I always say that drumming is a heartbeat. Like it literally, we're born with music in our blood. And I was raised in Oklahoma, where a lot of Native American music happens, really based on those drums. And to me, it's all about that emotion and that human connection. And I think that's why I love your drumming so much, is because I feel like when I'm hearing your creativity, you're writing those patterns with emotion. Like you were just talking about, like the build in You Could Be Mine, and like, that just, I mean, holy shit, it's just like blam right there. But then in Slither, you really are building up to this thing. And to me, that's coming from like a real deep inner place. I could be wrong, but that's my interpretation.
No, I feel you, because if it doesn't feel good to myself when I'm playing it, for me to get up on stage and play is therapeutic. I believe drums are therapeutic. And if you read my book, I come from sort of, a family that was a little bit disoriented, but I found drums. So drums became like my sort of go-to, and emotionally, like if I'm having a feeling, I'm going to go do that. Right. And then I took sort of like a lot of that feeling and emotion that I was having and put it into the drums. So when I play the drums, I still have that deep inside. And I know that from a lot of drummers that I know. And I go, hey, Mo, tell me a little bit about your childhood. No, it's like a therapeutic thing. It's like, okay, why did you gravitate towards music? And I think if you asked a lot of musicians, you'd hear this similar story. Like whatever was happening in their life, their family, kind of where they come from. I'm a kid of divorce at a very young age. That affected me, but music saved me. And drums saved me. And I look at the drums that way now. I look at the drums as something that has given me this incredible life, and I respect the instrument, almost like a taiko drummer in Japan who respects the drums, like on the island of Kato, which is they look at the drums as a spiritual instrument. And I feel that way about the drums. I feel they're very spiritual, and they transcend into other people's lives. And back in Guns N' Roses, I didn't know that I had any effect on anybody except for I wanted to go backstage and party.
Yeah.
But when people come up to me and say the kind of things that you just said, now at my age, I'm like, oh.
You can appreciate it.
Well, now I understand. It's like, what are these other bands that we grew up did for us? Like when we heard Led Zeppelin or the Beatles or the Stones, and we were like, that's part of my life. It's like, it's gotten me through things. You hear this stuff all the time. I listened to this song. I had this song at my wedding, yada, yada, yada. And I think we take it a little bit for granted, but we don't actually pinpoint exactly how deep and heavy it is until you really have these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
You know, how instrumental it is in our lives. And I believe that music is the great connector, and for all people all over the world. And I've always believed that.
Well, Matt, that's something you're just kind of touching on. It seems like in retrospect of your career, you've been really appreciative of all the different opportunities you've had. And you've been clearly vocal that you've been a journeyman in this rock and roll industry that we've been fans of. Do you, like, looking back on it now, I guess, like, where have been the pros of being in like different bands every few years versus being in one band for the majority of your career? It seems like for you, you've been able to get so many different experiences and like working with different musicians and doing different things. Like, what's, I guess, been the pros of being in such different projects every few years?
Well, I think it's a study in fear. As a musician or an entertainer of any stature, if you're an actor or you say actors now, you don't say actress anymore, or musician. So they're waiting for the phone to ring, right? And they know they have talent, but there's that lull. So I've been in hills and valleys, right? Okay. But the hills and valleys have really shaped me, and I gotta say, I feel so fortunate, and I look at it more as I get older again, because I understand a lot more. Because when you're out of a gig and there's 6 months or a year go by, you're like, oh my God, hey, you start getting into that place of like, oh, there's nobody's gonna call me.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. I'm completely faith driven, and when I say faith in a spiritual way, I'm going to get emotional.
Yeah, me too.
Faith is a thing that is real. And when you believe, there's no fear. So that's a practice. Now, the practice is keep in the faith, right?
Right.
And it always works out. It just does. And I've had that happen to me like so many times, and I never doubt it, because I know it's a higher power, it's God, whatever you want to call your spirituality, right? But I truly believe that my life has been, I say the word blessed, because I'm very grateful for the way it's gone, because it's given me a lot of life lessons along the way. Plus, I've had the most amazing bucket list. Like, I'm like, hey, I played with Alice Cooper, Joe Perry. I've been in, the Kings of Chaos is one of my favorite things, but we'll get in that in a minute.
Yeah.
Lemmy called me out of the blue. Velvet Revolver broke up, and that was the end of that band. And I truly believe that band was going to go on, and we were firing on all cylinders, and things got weird, and it's sad in the business when the wheels come off. And I've been in many bands where the wheels come off.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, the wheels are coming off. The train's going off the tracks.
Yeah.
And you sit and watch, and you're horrified with what happens. And that's happened to me many times.
Yeah.
So, but better things are coming, my friend. And
yes.
But what happened after Velvet Revolver was 2009, Lemmy texted me, and I was in that state of like, what's happening next? Same feeling I had when I got fired from Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
I went home and I went, shoot, I just got fired. Now what? It was that now what? And Lemmy texted me, and I could hear this voice over the text, Matt.
It's God talking to you.
I know, rock and roll God. Yeah, totally.
You watch what my speech at his funeral. That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I said, if Lemmy's God, I believe Lemmy is God, because
Yeah.
I believe people are vehicles. I believe this. So people, you can say whatever you want to blabbermouth. It's like, it's like I believe people are vehicles of God. I turn a corner, I meet somebody, and I'm very intuitive, and I'm like, that person's speaking to me.
Yeah.
God's speaking through that person. And I listen and I go, okay, I'm going to go make a left turn, and then I'm going to make a left turn, and there's this other thing over here, right?
Yeah.
I'm chippy like that, and I manifest and I do all that stuff. So when Lemmy called, I was almost like, okay, I'm going to be all right. And I said that in the speech. I said, Lemmy is the pinnacle. For me, I could have walked off into a cornfield like Field of Dreams, Shoeless Joe Jackson, and said, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like after I did that 19 shows with Motorhead, I was completely, my hands were covered in blisters. I was playing harder and faster than I've ever played in my life. And I took the challenge and I went out and I said, this is just a sign that anything is possible. And that continues to happen to me to this day. You know, Billy Gibbons called me and I joined Billy's band, and we did 2 records together. And I'm sitting with Billy and I'm looking at him going, you know, I slapped myself. When he first called me, I was like, I looked at the phone. I was like, you know, it's Billy Gibbons calling me, right? After I put his number in my phone, actually.
Yeah. Your phone must be wild.
Oh my God. You know, I'm on the phone. And then now he calls and I go, do I got 2 hours to talk to Billy? He talks about
He's a talker, is he?
Oh, have you ever interviewed him?
No, I've never had the chance.
I gotta get him on. He's the best. You guys.
He would love. We play a hell of a lot of ZZ Top, and he's from my.
Let me hook it up. Let me hook it up.
Okay.
Hook it up for us. He can help you, our manager.
Billy for me said it and completed the sentence. Everything is cool. And for me, being in Billy's band, even though we don't play and tour that much, we went out on the cruise. We did one of those rock cruises, and we're going to do another tour coming up next year. But that just said, okay, I've arrived.
No kidding.
You know, right. I'm like, I'm good. What's next? And so,
Well, speaking of arriving, so last night Chasta and I were at a show and we were prepping for you. And one thing I was remembered is, I don't know if you've seen that meme on Instagram or Twitter, whatever. It's the stack of CDs all that were released in 1991. And it's Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, Blackout, Metallica's Black Album, I think Pearl Jam, Nirvana. It's a stack of CDs, and it's like, who would have thought all these legendary albums released in 1 year? And I think even like a shorter, you know, the number of months,
5 days or something crazy like that.
Something crazy like that. So I guess like a 2-parter here for you. Like, what does it mean for you to be recorded music and part of this legendary run of music in 1991? And I kind of seen this online dialogue, like, is 1991 the greatest year for rock music in general? So, you know, 2-parter there for you.
Right. Well, it was an interesting time. You know, people were recreating and sort of coming out of the 80s, right? And the alternative music arrived. And I think Rage Against the Machine was done in that era, right? Right in there.
I think so, yes. Yeah.
So anyway, I remember the Black Album going down because me and Lars had become really good pals on the Cult Metallica tour, which I stayed on the road for almost 6 months. He actually, I don't know if you read this, but he was one of the guys that helped me get the gig with GNR. So he
called your mom's house.
Yeah, right. I love that.
That's right. And we're still really good pals to this day. Whenever I go see Metallica, he takes care of me like I'm royalty or something. He just gets me on.
He's another very humble dude. He listened to our radio station because he's lived here all this time. He would like drive his kids to school and be rocking the phone and call us up. Really cool dude.
I go to like movie screenings.
I remember Lars. I remember Lars being around the sessions. We went out to lunch one day. He came down to A&M, and it was like closed sessions. It's not that they were the enemy, but we didn't let a lot of people in the studio. Hey, come in. And me and Lars went to lunch, and we were like, and he goes, "So what's it sound like? What's going on?" He was curious, I go, "Well, we're doing some ballads." He's like, "Ballads, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, like piano." He's like, "Piano." I'm like, right? Because that Appetite was the only record until I came along.
Right.
Well, lies, but so anyway, he was like, "Really?" And so when they went to do the Black album, I was hanging around with those guys, and they did that out in the valley on Lancashire Boulevard at a place called One on One Studios. And I remember going to visit him. He let me in the room though.
Yeah.
And I went in there, and he had the kit, and Bob Rock was there, and we were all in that energy together. That was happening at that time, and we were all in Hollywood recording those records, and of course, the infamous tour of GNR and Metallica together.
Mm-hmm.
Lars is no dummy. He's this very intelligent man, and he was vying for the top position. He was like, "We are going to be the biggest band in the world," and we were the biggest band in the world at that.
Yeah, you were.
It was a good like kind of rivalry, right? It made us all step up.
It pushed you,
push each other,
Like, we're like, "Oh shit, Metallica's they're coming up here, man." It's like, okay, let's go. So we were like, man, that was just those days of. If I look back at GNR, I say to people, well, there's the band now, and then there's that.
Yeah.
Go check that out. It's on YouTube. But we were like, it was chaotic. It was crazy. Of course, Axl was late sometimes. Who cares? It was. That was the energy. If people complained, by the time he came on stage, it was just on. Game on.
I have waited on Axl for 2.5 hours, and a fight and a fire broke out in the lawn, if I remember correctly. People were throwing bottles. It was wild. But I will say, once he was on and you guys were ready to go, it was fire on the stage, not in the lawn.
Well, I say to people, what was going on backstage was causing a lot of like emotional sort of like angst, right? And in a punk rock way, some of us were angry. I could say me included. We were like, "Where is he?" Like, but once we got up there, we were like, and talk about taking it all out. We did. And it's not like, and you asked me before, it's like, what would it be like to be in the same band? And I think that's something I thought about. And I always say to like Trey Cool from Green Day or something. I said, "Trey, man, it's like you got the same band and the same guys. And how does that feel? And it's only 3 guys, so you split the money 3 ways. That's cool."
Right.
But at the same time, I had that moment with the band, and it's really shaped and formed my life, and a lot of doors have opened because of it. So I look at it with a lot of gratitude. When people ask me, "Oh, you're not included on the new tour," and I've said in the beginning, it was a little weird. I was like, I didn't even get a call, but now I look at it different. I look at it like how I explained before. I'm not supposed to be there, right? I got a child. I got a beautiful wife. The old me, the old Matt, the old guy. If I got up there, I don't know what would happen to me. I don't know. So, not saying.
But you were there at the best time when the magic was in the bottle, that lightning in a bottle. You were part of that. I mean, and that is what shaped who I am. I know Huey feels the same way. It was bands like Guns N' Roses when you were there is really probably the reason I am a rock and roll radio program director, and I've played radio for 22 years in the rock realm, is because of the love I have for it. And I have people like you to thank for that. So nothing to be worried about.
Well, thank you. No, and I still get a lot of accolades, and people, I always get these like weird fringe benefits still 30 years later, like I have businesses because of it. I do other things, but philanthropically, I'm able to put the word out because I'm the guy from that band, and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Guns N' Roses drummer, has charity for kids.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
love
and
your charity. Yeah.
It gets pressed because I'm the guy from that band, you know, and played on the records and some of the songs, a lot of the songs. So, yeah, all that being said, I'm in a really good place. So, you know, what's happening with me now is I've got a lot of businesses and philanthropic work, and then I do Kings of Chaos for fun.
Can we talk about Kings of Chaos?
Okay.
Because it's one of my favorite things to go through the timeline. Like if you go on Wikipedia and try to go like who played where and when and all that, who manages who's currently in Kings of Chaos? Because it seems like a rock and roll nightmare to figure out like everyone's schedules, just like who's going to be in town, who could do this.
You're looking at them.
I had a feeling. That's crazy.
So I'm the only member of the band. So
you're
I
like
own the
you
name.
are the king of Kings of Chaos. Like it starts with you, right?
Yes, it does. And
Okay.
I've said this before, but basically what happened was after Velvet Revolver and everything, I'm like, I formed a band called Camp Freddy with Dave Navarro years
Oh, I
ago.
love Camp Freddy. Love.
And
Yeah.
we did that for a long time, like almost 11 years. And then one day I was like, I don't know, it just kind of ran its course. And I took off and I did my own thing. And I decided I would just curate my own band. Like my bucket list. Who do I want to play with? What songs do I want to play with? I've done Africa. I called Steven Tyler. He came. Billy Gibbons, Robin Zanders, Slash, Nuno Betancourt, Duff on bass, Mike Inez, all my friends. And of course, I get whatever I feel like, you know, I can offer them financially. I fly everyone nice business class. I take good care of them. Once they come, it's how I would want to be treated. I always say this to my daughter: be kind. How would you want to be treated? Oh, be kind. So they come. Everyone's like, there's no drama. There's no like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, I invite people that are going to be fun and easy to work with, and so I've done it. God, going on, I think it's 12 years now, 10 or 12 years, and it's the best time because for me, it's still an education in playing some of the greatest songs. Like for instance, at Gilroy, I'm going to be with Robin Zander.
Yeah.
And I always listened to Cheap Trick growing up, right? Now I'm in a band with the guy. He's one of the coolest dudes and most underrated rock and roll singers on planet Earth. You could ask anybody. He still sings in the original key. He's like, shows up on time. He comes to sound check. I love the guy. And I get to play Surrender, Want You to Want Me, Dream Police, and we're going to do probably California Man or whatever. But so that being said, and then my old friend Sebastian Bach, a little bit more of a character, but I've known him for 30 years. I'll be Baz, stop behaving badly.
Yeah.
This is your Uncle Matt here, and I'm telling you, I work for that, so you're not going to get away with that with me. So
I saw you. I ran into you. You wouldn't remember this. It was a long time ago, but at the Viper Room, Sebastian was playing, and my husband's band was opening for like this. It was Steve Stevens and Sebastian, and then Billy Idol. Let's see if you remember this one. Billy Idol jumped on stage for the last song, and he's singing "Eyes Without a Face," and then all of a sudden he stops. And actually, Frankie Perez was there too. That was the first time I ever saw Frankie.
Camp Freddy.
Yeah, and then. And then Billy stops in the middle and he's just blank. And he's like, I forgot the words. I ran out of Coke.
Oh, yeah, could be.
And he starts Googling his own song. And people are like holding phones up. It was the funniest moment ever.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Kings of Chaos is like, I did put out one song. I'm trying to record some more stuff, but that'll come when it comes. I'm not pressured, there's no pressure.
That's great. Yeah. This is your baby to create. It's awesome.
Yeah. So this particular gig in Gilroy, I got that, typically someone will call me. I'll find out, like a lot of these gigs I get because word of mouth, like they'll go, I want to get Kings of Chaos. I do a lot of private stuff. Like I'm doing one with Billy Idol next month. It's like a charity. And then I'm doing the Breeders' Cup with Sammy Hagar, and I call Sammy. He's an old pal. I go, Sammy, I need you. you know, it's down the street. You don't have to get on your jet. Yeah.
Just as long as Sammy doesn't have to wake up before noon, you'll get him.
Oh, Sammy's great. I love Sammy, and I played on one of his kids. And anyway, so I just do it like that. And I've said before, I've called Keith Richards. I've called Robert Plant. I've got a mindset that I'm not scared to ask the question.
Yeah.
And that came from practice as well. Like, okay, I'm just going to ask. If they say no, I'm not going to take it personal. It's like, hey, this is Matt. I got a gig. You know, I've said this before, but Keith Richards' manager hung up on me, which I thought was awesome. She said, he's already in a band. You might have heard of them. They're called the Rolling Stones. And she hung up.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yes. Robert
That's
Plant
a great
was very
moment.
cordial. Robert Plant's manager was thank you, but Robert's on tour with yada yada. And he sent me a nice. I have emails back from Roger Daltrey. Thank you, Matt. I hope you have a wonderful tour. But I'm going to be with the Who, and the Who. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I heard of him. Oh,
I will get Roger Daltrey now.
All right, we're manifesting. Back to manifesting. We're putting it out in the universe.
I mean, all these people that have come, incredible, right?
Yeah.
For me, and I'm doing a gig. I've done 2 with Don Felder, which is so weird, random. But the person that has the gig goes, well, what do you want? And they're like, well, can you get Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young? I'm like, no, I don't think I can. Oh, and you want Young too?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Now Crosby's gone. God bless
him.
But
Steven
Stills, I call Steven. Oh, Matt. And I used to hang with Steven back in the day when we were bad boys. But but I call these guys, and it's been great for me because I built relationships, and I feel like I've got enough respect that they'll take my phone call. You know,
obviously, yeah.
And whenever they show up at rehearsal, I go, "Thanks for answering the phone." You know,
that's so cool. I love that you do this. I know it's a lot to manage, but I think it's really cool, and it shows a lot about who you are. You know, everything that you've just said, you are very humble, very grateful to music for giving you all these opportunities, but you're also open to opportunities, and that like wildlife thing that happens that brings these people into your world, and you manifest it. So that this is what you get. You know, you get to create this amazing band with amazing humans. And do your thing. And Day on the Ridge, and we should give a plug, by the way. Yeah. Day on the Ridge does such great work for the St. Joseph's Family Center, which is all about helping, you know, eradicate homelessness in Santa Clara County. And I just think it's incredible. So I do want to mention, they asked me to mention, we have a code, The Bone, to get $10 off, dayontheridge.com. It's on Sunday. So Matt and everyone, all the kings and queens of chaos, I want to mention, we talked to Lita Ford earlier.
Right.
She was awesome. She was so funny. She told us about kicking Tom Petty out of her backstage area before he was Tom Petty. It was her and Cheap Trick, or it was the Runaways and Cheap Trick playing, and he was their opener. And of course, he wasn't Tom Petty then; he was Tom Petty. And so they were like, "Poof, poof, be gone."
Wow.
I love stories like that.
I was also told that people need to buy the tickets online. The walk up is a little weird there because to get it. So dayontheridge.com. And, you know, the money's going to a great cause, and the band's going to be kick ass. We're going to play a good solid close to 2-hour set of all hits.
Awesome.
So I'm really fired up for it. We had a really great rehearsals, and Orianthe's killer too. Wait till you
I know.
And Lita, Sebastian, Robin Zander, and then we got a great band with Gilby Clark and James Lomenzo from Megadeth on bass. Great bass player.
We saw Brent Woods play last night actually. So we got
at Bottle Rock.
No, last night was at Old Princeton Landing. It's a bar just down the way from where I live. But they're going to play at Bottle Rock today at 5:30. So we'll.
How about Taylor's kid? He's just smashing them, isn't he?
Oh, you talk about getting emotional watching that little boy. Oh, Lord. And I mean, he's not a little boy anymore, obviously, but he hits as hard, maybe harder than Taylor. I don't know, but you see him giving it.
So, and you know what? Exactly what we were talking about. He's funneling that energy, and we know it must be hard what he's going through. So he's taking it, and his spirit is you know, his dad's spirit is funneling through him. That's obvious.
There's no question.
And he's just like
Chasta get that.
Oh, that's great. Yes, I love it.
Killer drummer. I love
and
watching.
Again, it's in that blood.
He's got that wild abandon. He's like, it's like take no prisoners. It's I don't care if I fall over. Like,
yes,
I just love watching young players that are that inspired, you know, and that inspires me to not be an old grumpy guy. Like when I recorded with Maniskin, the young guitar player, Thomas, into my studio, he was in full regalia, eyeliner, leather, and he said, "Let's rock and roll." And it was like noon. And I was like, I'm like, let's go. Like, just channeling your inner youth, right? Like, and I say that I was having some conversation with a lady at the grocery store the other day. She's like 78. She comes up to me. She saw me in the paper here. She goes, "Oh my God, you know, yada, yada, yada." And she had this young energy. Like she was just on fire. And I say that to people. I say, you are not old. Ask Mick Jagger. He's 81.
And he's our Energizer bunny.
People are like 60 going, "Oh, I'm old." I'm like, shut up. I'm like, Mick Jagger's still dancing around at freaking Satisfaction, you know, better than a lot of kids. So use that as your inspiration. I say that.
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned earlier, you know, my almost 8-year-old is a drummer and he's really diving into music. And I just want to say thank you. You're an inspiration to him as well. You know, we have rock and roll boot camp in our house. Like we'll go through, like we'll pick Guns N' Roses, we'll take Guns N' Roses and we'll play all the vinyl we have. And we'll go through and explain to him like what these songs are. And now like he's picking his favorite songs and his favorite artist. He's really stuck on Iron Maiden right now. But, which is you talk about a great drum influence. Exactly. But it's just cool to be able to tell him, like, I talked to this guy you're listening to. I talked to him today, and he's not only a great drummer, but a great human. So thank you for being that guy. So I can show that to my son.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we always end. Now we ask you this question at Aftershock, but it was so loud and chaotic. I don't feel like we got the moment that we wanted. We asked it's from the movie Almost Famous. And the question is, what do you love about music? So Matt Sorum, as we sit here calm, cool, and collected, talking about the universe and manifestation and all the things, what do you love about music?
Music is just soothes my soul, you know, and it's something that brings us together. And I love that. I think it exudes love in a metaphorical way, and happiness and joy and even melancholy. So there's so many emotions that go through it. But I think if we didn't have music, the world would really be a horrible place. And, you know, the world is hard and there's a lot of things going on, but music is something we can go to just feel, you know, hope and inspiration for the future. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's why I asked that question. I love it so much. Matt, you are such a treasure. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Tell your wife, her fellow Oklahomie says hello.
Right on. I will.
Yeah, that's Thank you. Crazy. Absolutely. All right. Go grab your tickets, dayontheridge.com. If you want to use that code, it's the bone, $10 off. And see the Kings of Chaos out of Gilroy.
Too cool.
Well, all right, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Have a great day.
We appreciate it. You take care. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.